What's up, guys? I'm joking, I'm not doing them intros. Today I'm going to show you how to create this gradient and turn it into Instagram posts in Illustrator and Photoshop. Let's go. So let's start off with a folder. Let's call it gradient underscore tutorial. So I'm going to go O1 and then resources. That's where all of our resources are going to go. I'm going to do O2 dev. That's going to be the development folder. So that's going to be where you put your working file. And then O3 for final. So this is the usual folder structure I use. Yeah, and it's really good and it'll help you keep organized. So to start off, we need to find a source image. So I usually go on Unsplash to find these kind of images. And there's all sorts of stuff with loads of different gradients and loads of different colors. They're really good to color pick. But I found one earlier, this one of a street. I really like all the highlights and different kinds of colors, quite neon. I'm going to click download free. That's going to ask me where to put it. So it's on my desktop, gradients, and then I'm going to stick it in resources. Then we're going to go to Illustrator. Let's open up Illustrator, create a new document. Can be pretty much any size you want, but for this tutorial, I'm going to make it a normal size of 1920 by 1080 in pixels. Great. So there you've got your artboard. You can hit space and click to drag around. So then we're going to go and get our image and just drop it in like that. Boom, you got your image. So what we're going to do in Illustrator is we're going to create a color palette and we're also going to create a gradient, because I found that this is the best way to do that and it's easiest and it's just best. So first of all, we're going to go hit save because you've got to save everything, and I'm going to call this gradient. And I'm going to stick that in my resources folder as well. Okay, so now we've got the document saved. We're safe. Right, so I'm going to just grab, let's say, 5 colors. So get that box there, and I'm going to click and drag out. And if you hit shift at the same time, it does a perfect square. Then let go, and you've got your box. Duplicate anything in Illustrator really easily. Click on it, hit Option or Alt, and drag it to the side. Then we're going to use this eyedropper tool. I'm going to click on the box you want, click the eyedropper tool or I on your keyboard, and I'm just going to color drop some things, so I'll just do that quickly. Cool, right, so we've got our colors. Then we're just going to get another box and do a square again like we did before, so hold a shift and drag. I'm going to make this artboard the same size as this square, so whilst this square is clicked on highlighted, I'm going to click Shift and O, which will open our artboard tool. And then I'm just going to drag until it snaps into place there. Then hit V, and that puts you back to your selection tool. So now we've got a box on an artboard exactly the same size. Right, now we're going to create a gradient. So what you need to do first is click on this gradient over here. Then you get this linear gradient, and then if you go over to your gradient thing over here, you can click on freeform gradient, and that's what we're going to use today. So I'm going to click that. So to edit this gradient, I'm going to click on the box, click edit gradient up here, and you can see there's these 4 points, and each of these points has a different color on it. What we can do is click on the point and eyedrop different colors. Click on the color, my gradient. Let's add another one as well. So we've got 5, but there's only 4 here. So I'm just going to click in the middle, and then I'm going to double click on that eyedrop tool and get the white. And then what you can do is you move these around as well. So we can create a really cool gradient from all these things, all these colors. And what I'm also going to do is make this blue a bit bigger. So you can see the color there, and then you've got this dotted outline around it, and then you've got this little handle here. If you pull this, click and pull this handle, it intensifies or gets less. So you can make it more or less, and then that'll take up more space or less space in your gradient. Once you are happy with your gradient, hit V on your keyboard, which takes you back to the selection tool, and then you need to click Command S or just go to File and Save. So you've got your gradient. Congratulations, you made a gradient. It's looking cool, but you want to turn it into Instagram post. For that, I'm going to head to Photoshop. So I'm going to click on Photoshop, Create New, or Command N. And then for an Instagram post, it's usually 1080 by 1080 pixels. And then I'm also going to make sure artboards is selected, because we're not just going to do a post, we're going to do a story as well. And to keep them on the same document is miles easier. Make sure it's 72 ppi and it's an RGB color, and then hit create. And there you go, you got an artboard. First thing I'm going to do, as always, Command Shift S. We're going to save as, and we're going to stick this in the dev folder this time. And we're going to call this gradient social post. And we're going to click save. Cool. And then I'm going to rename the artboard by double clicking there and call it grid. Right, to get your gradient into here, most people would copy and paste it from here. So you click on that, copy it, and paste it in there. However, if you want to change that gradient on a later date, you're going to have to keep on copying and pasting it. So what I'd suggest you do is place it as a linked file. So we're going to go to File, and then we're going to go Place Linked. And then we're going to go and find our gradient that we've just made. Gradient, click Place, and then hit OK, and then tick it. And it's exactly the same size as this, because that's the size we made it in Illustrator. Right, first thing we're going to do is delete this bottom layer, and then we're going to add a bit of noise to it. And by doing this, it just makes it feel more tactile, and it's just quite cool, to be honest. So we're going to create a new solid or a new shape. So we're going to hit the square, and then we're just going to double click, put in whatever size you want, but we're going to put 1080 by 1080 because that's how big it needs to be. It's the same size as the grid, and then we're going to click from center, and that's going to just stick it in. Click on it. Make sure you've got auto select and show transform options highlighted up here in the top corner, so you can get these bounding boxes and you can change it. And then click on it, or click on the layer down here and go up to align, and we're going to just align to the middle with this one and this one. Then we're going to double click on the box and make it white. Easy enough. Then we're going to go filter, noise, add noise, and then it's going to ask you to convert it to a smart object. So we're going to click convert to smart object. So we're just going to put it down to maybe about 30%. And we're going to make sure it's monochromatic, because otherwise it's all this colourful noise and we don't want that. So we're going to go monochromatic, and then about 40% maybe. Click OK. We're going to change the blending mode. And the blending modes are just ways you can make a layer interact with other layers below or above it, by changing colours and how colours react to other layers. So we're going to click on the rectangle layer. We're going to hit this normal here. That's where all your blending modes are. And then we're going to click multiply. And multiply basically just gets rid of all white and lets the colour from underneath shine through. So we're going to do that. So we're going to click back on your layer. We're going to go filter, blur, and Gaussian blur. Now when I've done it, it's gone way too much, because as you can see it looks like clouds now. So we're just going to turn it down a bit. So it's just a little bit out of focus. Okay. So it's about 1.1 pixels, going to click OK. And then we're going to reduce the opacity a bit, so it's not too much. So I usually go down to 0 first. So you can click and drag. So click on the opacity bit and drag, and it can change the values really easily. So I'm going to go down to 0 first, and then I'm going to intensify it a bit more. So we can judge that. So I reckon about 46% is fine. So you've got your gradient. Crazy. You've got your noise. We're going to rename this rectangle noise, and then we're going to hit save just to make sure. And then we're going to add some text to it. Really easy. I'm just going to add some text here, draw a text box, and the T over there. And I'm going to use this font called Aviano Didone. I don't know, it's probably a free font I found somewhere. I'm just going to type colourful. Then I'm going to highlight all the text. I'm going to select justify text. And what that does is just makes the text span left to right equally. And then I'm going to click on the third one and click Shift Enter to force line the break. And I'm going to go there so it spaces out nice and evenly. Hit the tick. Go back over here. You can either hit V or go on to and click the selection tool. Move tool is called in Photoshop. Different Illustrator Photoshop. Don't know why. We're going to center that like we did with the box. 4. And then we're going to apply some filters to this too. So to do that, we're going to need to right click and convert to smart object. Change the blending mode to something more interesting. I'm going to just go linear burn for that. And go filter, blur, and I'm going to apply a motion blur, I think. And that's added like this little dial here is the direction in which the motion will blur. So I'm just going to do a slight angle, and I'm going to change the distance to be a bit less so it's more readable. You get a little preview of it over here, but you also get it on your document as well. Yeah, I think that's about right. I'm going to click OK, and then you've got your grid post. Crazy. Now we made it an artboard, so we can make a story as well in the same document. So we're just going to hit save first, and then we're going to create another artboard. And I'm going to copy this grid by doing the same thing we did in Illustrator. So make sure you're hovering over the name, click Option or Alt, and drag, and that creates a copy of the artboard, like it created a copy of the squares in Illustrator. So some things in the Adobe suite like carry across different things, but some things don't. Really weird. So now we've got grid and grid copy. I'm going to rename this to story. I need to create a story size. So make sure you selected it up here. And then if you go up to the top left corner, you've got width and height, and we're going to change the height to 1920. Hit enter. Now we've got story size. Amazing. So to make this stretch and fill this whole thing, we need to stretch the gradient and the noise. So we're going to click on gradient, and we're just going to stretch it down. Now, as you can see, when you stretch it down without holding anything else, it does it uniform. We don't want that, we want it to stretch. We're going to hit shift at the same time as stretching, and that will just stretch it in that one direction. And click on noise, and with a noise one, I'm just going to make it square, because otherwise you'll be stretching the noise and it'll go longer. So we're just going to stretch it like normal without holding shift. Click the little tick up here, and then we're just going to click on the text, and we're just going to center that again. Magical. Make sure this is centered on this one. Cool. There you go. You've got your story and grid post. What you could do is you could always change this a bit. So I'm just going to go in here, copy this, and paste it back on top. So we've got it again. Then I'm going to delete that layer again. And then we're going to format this however we want. I quite like how it looks when you highlight it and it's inverted. That's quite cool. And then we're going to make that a smart object again. Change blending mode to what it is, linear burn. Where are you, linear burn? There you are. And then we're just going to click on your layer and apply blur, motion blur, and it should be the same set as last time. Click OK. And I said I like the highlight, how that happens, and it inverts it. So we're going to get a box from over here, get a rectangle, and just highlight it. Now, as you can see, it's done it from the middle, and that's because when we double click before, we clicked from center. So I'm just going to click and click OK again, and delete that box, and then it'll be way easier to just click and drag to where you want it to go. Right. And then we're going to do that again and again. And that's, remember to click Option or Alt and drag. And if you click Shift at the same time, it does it in the same straight line. And then we're going to select all these things by clicking Shift and clicking on them. To align them evenly, we're going to click this button up here. And then we're going to make all these boxes white. And then select them all again. Go on. That's normal. So difference inverts the colours behind it. So that's another cool thing you can do. You go on File, Export, and then I'm going to go to Artboards to Files. That's going to bring this little window up. So first of all, we're going to browse and select where we want it to go. So we're going to put this in our final folder, open. Then the file name, we're just going to stick an underscore at the end. And that will mean that when you export it, so say we just want to export this grid one, it'll export gradient, social post, underscore, and then grid will be added to the end, or story will be added to the end, just so you can differentiate and it's easier to find. And we make sure it's JPEG. I'm going to click export options and make sure the quality is up to 12, and then I'm going to click run. That'll just take a couple of seconds. Then you'll get a little pop-up saying it's done. Click OK, and then head to your final folder, and there you have them. You've got your grid post and your story, and you can play around with all sorts of different things in Photoshop, and you can create loads of different gradients, and you can layer them, you can change the blending modes on them, you can do all sorts of things. But go wild, kids, go wild. So guys, if you enjoyed that tutorial, please leave a comment, leave a like, and subscribe. I hope you enjoy creating all the gradients your heart desires. I'd love to see them. Here's my Instagram, tag me, and yeah, see you in the next video.